Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And here we are once again on a Friday evening, alternating as we do with our sister programme Sweet and Swing. It's Jumpin' In tonight, the best in modern and contemporary jazz from around the globe, with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, Pinch Punch, the first of the month. Can you believe it? Only a couple of weeks to go before EFG London Jazz Festival, when a veritable who's who in the jazz world congregate in London around the concert halls and clubs in the Metrop for a fortnight jam-packed full of gigs, including the Cats in the Hats. So listen out, we'll be there and report on what we're lucky to see and hopefully catch up with a few of the big names. In the meantime, H, what are you clearing out from the packed shelves at home this week to make room for new arrivals? And have you been told that you have to sell before you buy?
You know what, there's some great new stuff and a great old one as well. Joachim Kuhn, his latest on Act with the French Trio. I'm not normally a fan, but I've really been enjoying that one. The latest from the great Finnish pianist Alexi Tuomarila. I think it's his best yet. And way back when, to the 1970s, I've been really enjoying some Edward Vassala of late.
And from me, well, we wistfully start the week. We look through the gates, we drift off, and to start, we return to Forever with John Beasley and the Frankfurt Radio Big Band. Return to Forever, and those opening chords take you straight back to the supergroup's 1972 self-titled album on ECM, with, of course, Chick Corea. This time, John Beasley, along with the fine players of the Frankfurt Radio Big Band, one of those great bands with sponsorship to keep big band music alive, has applied his clever big band arrangements to a number of Return to Forever's best-known tracks, in the same way as he cleverly reinvented monk tunes with his monkestra. I suppose this is Koreastra, if you want to say that, if it's a word, and very effective it is too. All the tracks on the album, I think, remain true to the spirit of the originals while filling out great orchestrations from the quintet. Great ensemble work being driven along by drummer Jean-Paul Hochstatter and bassist Hans Glaschvenig. I never know how to say that name. Glavashnik.
Close enough. Yeah,
Glavashnik, yes. Solos from flautist Oliver Lecht and Christian Yaxos on trombone, all tied together by the great keyboard work of John Beasley. The album is aptly called Returning to Forever and is out now on the Candid label, and with so much material to go at, we can hope there might be a second volume. Many thanks to Shauna at Jazz Dog for sending us a copy.
Terrific stuff, always a great way to get going. Now, I've never been much of a fan, if I'm honest, of the pianist Joachim Kuhn. Very well respected, been around for donkey's years, of course, playing in all sorts of different formats, and a fine pianist, but somehow or other it never quite clicked with me. I found it a bit stodgy, or it just didn't, somehow, that music just doesn't speak to you in the way that sometimes it doesn't, just in the way, wonderfully, when it does, it's so magical. But his latest one on Act, with what he just calls the French Trio. Joachim Kuhn, the French Trio, which in this case is the Thibaut Cellier and Sylvain Derafouk, does definitely work for me. I must admit, really been enjoying this one. Quite free in places, swinging in other places, and just has a real sort of great feeling about it, a nice drive and some great playing indeed from not just the whole trio, but Joachim Kuhn himself on the piano. Let's hear them on one of Ornette's tunes, Homogeneous Emotions. good ending. I like that doom poof on the bass drum to finish off from Sylvain Darrofouk. Joachim Kuhn on the piano, Thibaut Cellier on double bass, and this is the French trio on Act. Came out at the end of September, I think, recorded in Ibiza. My cousin lives there, in June of 2023. And Joachim Kuhn been around for a long time. It's amazing to think he started out in the mid-60s, I think, 63, 64, in Leipzig, away with his first ever trio. Now, I think he's around about 80, I think, and certainly says he feels drawn to freedom at this stage in his life. And he says playing with these two musicians who are much younger than him, he's easily old enough to be their dad, let alone granddad, I should think. He says making music the French way, he says, lightness, speed and elegance, and lots of intuition there as well. He's played with pretty much anyone who's anyone, really, and he certainly did have a very famous trio with Jean-François Jenny-Clark and Daniel Humer. But he says he's really been drawn to this free jazz side of things, long outgrown its infancy, free jazz. And it's as much about freedom, he adds, as the spontaneous creation of structures. And for me, they've just got the balance right there on this album. Really enjoying that. Too much free, and you think, it sort of bogs you down after a while. Free with some structure to sort of keep you on some sort of pathway, even if you don't know which way the path is going. Definitely works for me. So I've been enjoying that one very muchly indeed. On Act, thanks very much indeed to our friends there for sending us that one. Joachim Kuhn, French trio.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do have some that I really enjoy of his. Played with everybody, as you said. There's a great one called Nightline New York with Mike Brecker, Eddie Gomez, Bob Mintzer and other people back in the 80s. But yeah, been around for a very long time. Next up from me, an album from a bassist, composer and band leader, Mauricio Morales. It came up due to an unplanned extension to a family visit in Mexico, when due to a visa mix-up he was unable to return to the States, where he and his band had gig commitments. Mauricio, used the week's delay as a cathartic exercise to challenge himself to write a new piece a day for the band, channeling his thoughts and feelings of the day. And the resulting sweet 7 pieces in distinctly different styles led to his band performing the music in Los Angeles on his return, and they convinced him he should record the music. And the result, the album is 7 days, recorded over 2 days live in the studio, and from it we'll hear Monday, Wishful Thinking. Monday Wishful Thinking, taken from the new release from bassist, composer and band leader Mauricio Morales, entitled 7 Days, which is his fourth album as a leader. He says he's moved continually toward jazz. His first album was jazzy, the second one is more like a kind of pop rock album, and then the third one definitely jazz, and this one obviously also jazz. A really interesting, enjoyable listen it is too. If that's how Monday makes him feel, then here's a man who must be looking forward to the week ahead. Throughout the suite, the solos are spread evenly throughout the band members, and the playing is of a uniformly high standard. I've found myself coming back to this record several times in the past few weeks. It works in the car as well. Recommend giving it a listen. And what a great band. Edmar Colon on sax and taking a solo on that track, guitarist Horace Bray, trombonist Ido Meshalum, pianist Luca Mendoza, and dynamic drummer Jungkook J.K. Kim, and of course Mauricio Morales, who we also heard soloing on that track. Many thanks to the team at Groove for sending us that.
You are listening to Jumpin In with Chris and myself, H, and this is Edward Vasala. loving it, that one. Going all the way back to 1974 when that was recorded. Nan Madol. Now sadly out of print. I think you can sort of get a download and such like, but if you're looking for the vinyl or a CD, then... well, you'll have to turn to sort of eBay and the likes and see if you can get second-hand copies, because ECM seem to have dropped it from their list at the moment. Although, like I said, you can still get the download, I think, on Apple Music and such like. Nan Madol, that was the title track from his 1976 album of the same name, which I think is a sacred place out in Micronesia or somewhere like that. I always thought it was in Finland for some reason. With Finnish percussionist Edward Vasala. Great character, sadly missed, died very young, unfortunately, but is one of those sort of gurus who would happily, I think, eschew fame and fortune in order to make the music that he wanted to make. I don't think he was interested in making huge amounts of money or commercial music. He just wanted to make music he thought spoke to people and was proper jazz, inventive music. And I think one of his later ones, Ode to the Death of Jazz, was exactly that, this idea that what he thought was the true spirit of jazz had died somewhat and had all become rather commercialised, I dare say. Well, I don't think you could ever accuse Edward of making too much commercial music, but really enjoyed that one going back again. I've just had a phase over the last week of listening to Ode to the Death of Jazz and Lumi and Nan Madol and some of his work with Thomas Stanko as well. And very lively group of Finns there as well. Edward himself on drums and percussion and flute and harp. Elizabeth Lustola on harp. Charlie Mariano, the great Charlie Mariano on alto sax, nagaswaram and flute on that album. And others like Juhani Aaltonen on soprano sax and tenor and such like. And Juhani Putinen on violin and voice. And Bells, a great album recorded in Helsinki in 1974. And Melody Maker said that John Coltrane might have made music like this if he'd been born a European. Nan Madol is an orgy of sound, no other description can suffice. And one of the tracks on it, we didn't hear it obviously today, Arias Vlota, remains one of the most extraordinary moving big band scorings. I'll play that another time. Put it next to Ascension in your collection, they suggest. We'll just go and seek it out. Edward Vasala.
Edward Vasala, yes, never a man afraid of experimentation. And indeed, a lot of jazz that we play on this show, and you can go out and explore for yourself, does have a wide breadth of different influences, taking all kinds of influence on board. And next up from me, another one from ACT, actually, the latest release from Daniel Garcello's trio with Wonderland, which reinforces their place as one of Spain's top jazz acts, freely mixing jazz, flamenco, and classical piano styles, I think. Let's hear the highly syncopated Gates to the Land of Wonders. Freely wandering around with time in that one. Gates to the Land of Wonders, taken from the latest release, Wonderland, their third on the Act label by the Daniel Garcia Trio. Daniel says, after many years together as a trio, the relationship between myself, Rainier El Negron on bass and Mikel Oliveira on drums is extremely organic, deep and almost telepathic. When playing together, we are in a deep listening state all the time. We're constantly exchanging information and reacting to it like we are making a real-time musical sculpture. The album also features a guest appearance from guitar whiz Gilad Hexelman on the title track and a couple of guest vocalists.
I am staying Nordic. I'm staying in Finland, to be honest with you, for the latest from the wonderful pianist Alexi Tuomarila, who's been around, well, he's been around the block a few times now. I keep thinking him as one of the Young Turks, and, well, he was, like we all were at one stage, and perhaps he's past the Young Turk stage. At least I think he's much more of an established voice than a Young Turk. But this new one finds him sort of reinventing himself in many ways, and it's dating back to COVID and coming out of COVID, I think, and sort of finding a very difficult time when, you know, it was dark, and it was dark in all sorts of ways. There was no work. Obviously, there were health issues, there were people dying, etc., etc. And he said he had imposter syndrome and such like. But then he reconsiders his role as an artist, and it led to a rehabilitation and redemption, reigniting his love for the music and returning to a more pure practice, departing the wasteland, as indeed the album is called. And for my money, it's one of the best he's done for quite some time. This is called Inner Wasteland. Definitely one of his strongest outings in quite some time, in my very humble opinion. Alexi Tuomarila with his latest album, Departing the Wasteland, with a fantastic cover of It's That House. I've seen it before on some other album, actually, thinking back from the 70s, and I was trying to think, is it Ralph Simon? Someone like Ralph Simon, I think, has used a very similar picture. It's that house somewhere out in the Sahara, which has been reclaimed by the desert. So it's like a door opening inside of a room with just tons of sand all drifted up outside the door and through the doorway into the next room, and the desert is gradually engulfing the house again. Wonderful picture. Anyway, wonderful stuff from him. Thanks very much to our friends on Audition for that one. Alexi on piano and synthesizers, Andre Fernandez on guitar, Mats Albertson bass, Ulov Lufkuri on drums, Gil Silva trombone, Jose Pedro Coelho, I think from Portugal, on tenor sax, and João Guimarães on alto sax and flute. And like I said, it goes back to him. It's another one of those albums that traces its roots back to COVID and him reinventing himself out of the back of that. And he'd been working with his trio for a long time, but expanded it on this and to great effect. I really do think I enjoy most of his work over the years with his trio, but I think extending the group here into what a sort of a septet, I think it is, really pays dividends, and it repays repeated listening, as I've done already. It is out officially on the 22nd of November, thanks to Audition.
Very good it is too. I agree with you on that one. And that just about wraps it up for this sparkling edition of Jumpin' In. As usual, it's been a banger. Although it's not quite bonfire night, I'm sure with it falling on a weekday, we'll see plenty of lights in the sky this weekend. So keep your furry friends inside. For now, we'll leave you with Returning Dream, the title track from the latest release from Paradise Cinema, who is the brainchild of Portico Quartet's saxman Jack Wiley. Here is Returning Dream.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Bye for now.